Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Great Satanic Chronicles. My name is Winged Supernova. In the last episode, we continued with the investigation. We kind of just went through everything from top to bottom that we could. We spoke with Professor Mikotoba, who wants us to, he wants us to return to Japan as a defense lawyer after this case is over with. Because he says that Japan is in very big need of a good defense lawyer right now. Plenty of prosecutors, not very many defense lawyers. And then we also went to see Mr. Vigil, and he told us about a last will and testament that Genshin Asogi was writing in his cell before everything happened. He also said that there was something peculiar about the method in which the body was being disposed of, considering that he's supposed to be the one that goes into the room after the body has been placed in the coffin, and he nails it shut. But he was not privy to this jailbreak plan, whatever it may have been for Genshin Asogi. And the coffin was already nailed shut when he walked into the room. So we gotta learn about that. I'm probably thinking that the governor and the coroner at the time were both in on it, but we'll find out in a minute. But for right now, we're gonna go see Kazuma and pay him a visit. Clint. Big old portrait of Clint. They made a little diorama of the room in here too. So this is the office of Prosecutor Asogi now, is it?
Kazuma-sama is doing so well for himself.
Even though he's always forced to kneel on the floor of that Japanese style in that dark corner. It's his habit to sit Seiza style? I didn't know that's what it was called. It's his habit to sit Seiza style whenever he's working. He's obviously thinking right now, considering he's standing on the other side of the room. Kazuma. I thought it wouldn't be long before you paid me a visit, Ryunosuke. I was right about what I said, wasn't I? Sorry? That you have all the makings of a great defense lawyer. I mean, you're right. Well, I always believed that you'd fulfill your dream of advocating in the British courts. I just never imagined for 1 second that it would be as a prosecutor.
Seeing you stand in a foreign courtroom, so gallantly realizing your dream, Kazuma-sama, I'm truly happy for you.
And I am truly thankful to you, Judicial Assistant Mikotoba. Ryunosuke, I always thought it would be fun for you and I to shake up the British legal system a little together. This isn't quite how I envisaged it, but I suppose it's just another twist of fate. I've learned a lot of things during my time in London. About how Susato-san's father was himself a visiting student here once, along with Judge Jigoku. And about what happened with your father. Then you'll have no difficulty understanding why I had no choice, why I had to find a way to get into Britain as a visiting student myself. I want to hear it from you, Kazuma. As you wish, Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Here we go. The long-awaited conversation. It's getting on for a year now, since what happened on the SS Buria. We were heading across the oceans from Japan to Great Britain. When a bizarre series of coincidences led to those tragic events. I'm noticing more typos now. Interesting. I thought I'd lost my best friend forever. I must have been unconscious for a long time. When I awoke, I was lying on a bed. It was a narrow little room. There was a posy of flowers by the pillow. It took me a little while to realize that I was in the cabin of a ship. I slipped out of the room and headed up onto the deck. Were you already suffering from amnesia at that point? Yes, I didn't know what had happened or where I was. There was just this voice in my head. You have something you have to do, something no one else can know about. Go to Great Britain. Your task awaits you there. It was a calling I couldn't ignore. It compelled me relentlessly. Out on deck, I saw that I was on a huge steamship and we were docked in a large port.
It must have been Hong Kong.
Yes, it must have been. Presumably just before they were due to carry your body off the ship. I had no idea of the situation, but I did have the feeling that this was in some way my last chance. So I concealed myself among the disembarking passengers and I went ashore. Then I disappeared into the crowded streets of that foreign port city, so I could plan my onward journey to Great Britain. I think you could write like a finding yourself drama movie about his journey to Great Britain, considering this tale. Just under a year ago, with all my past memories lost to me, I was left behind in Hong Kong. Everything was foreign to me. The sights, the sounds, the smells. My head reeled. I was truly at a loss. I realized now that I'd escaped as a dead man, with nothing but the clothes on my back. No money, of course.
Oh, how terrifying for you.
Luckily, though, I had 2 feathers in my cap. One being your knowledge of English, I suppose? That's right, and on the back of that, I was able to pick up some work as a deckhand on a cargo ship. Eventually, after calling at countless ports, I finally arrived at Dover. That must have been some 3 months ago now. Your formidable tenacity of purpose showing itself again. I mean, the man had lost his memory and had literally nothing to his name, but he still managed to make his way to London on the opposite side of the world. Of course, I had no idea why I'd moved heaven and earth to get here at that point. So, how did you end up becoming Lord Van Zeek's apprentice then? That can only be called an extraordinary stroke of luck, really. You see, I was stopped at the border because I had no papers. They took me straight to Scotland Yard, and by sheer coincidence, Lord Strongheart was there to attend a meeting. That's when the second feather in my cap came into play.
Would that have been your knowledge of the law?
Yes, exactly. Lord Strongheart was curious about an Easterner with intimate knowledge of British law. He took me back with him to the Supreme Court and assigned me to the prosecutor's office. And then, 9 days ago, you finally got your memory back after the trial involving Drebber. Yes, I did. Ever since I first met you at Yume, you talked about your dream. Mark my words, Ryunosuke. I'll be chosen as a visiting student and make my way to Great Britain someday. Did you know the entire time about what happened to your father here? 16 years ago. When my father left on that exciting trip to Great Britain, I was just a boy. We took a photograph together the day before his departure. It's my last memory of him. But what I remember most about my father is his unswerving sense of justice. 6 years after he left, a gentleman called our family at home. He told me that Genshin, my father, had been taken ill in England and passed away. It was Professor Mikotoba, your father, Susato-san.
Oh my!
Ever since then, the professor was very good to me. He even helped to fund my university education at Yume. I'll be forever in his debt. But nevertheless, I just couldn't bring myself to believe what he'd told me.
Oh.
Then one day, a letter arrived at our house from Great Britain. There was no indication of the sender, so I opened it assuming it was from an old acquaintance of my father. What I read in that letter changed my entire life. What did it say? It said that my father had been a mass murderer, and the writer cursed the Asogi name.
Oh no!
As a result of that letter, I found out what had been hidden from me all those years. No notification of the sender, huh? Presumably the letter was sent from a relative of one of the victims. If whoever it was had been a member of the judiciary, he could have been present at the closed trial. The letter revealed that my father had been sentenced to death, executed for being a killer. I'm so sorry you had to find out that way. I imagine the British government did its very best to silence whoever sent that letter. But someone who knew the truth and couldn't bear the resentment was always going to be a problem.
But still, it could have been written by anyone. Why would you believe such a thing?
There was a newspaper cutting included with the letter. It was the first I'd ever heard of the professor, and his terrible killing spree.
Well, what did my father have to say about the letter?
I couldn't bring myself to show it to him. What? Why not? Because he deliberately concealed the truth from me by telling me my father was taken by a fatal illness. That couldn't have been easy for him, and he'd done it out of consideration for my feelings. So instead, I showed the letter to Judge Jigoku. Oh, interesting. Ah, to the other visiting student. He faltered for the briefest of moments, but then he just laughed the letter off. But in that moment I saw it on his face. He was undeniably shocked, shaken momentarily before recovering his poise. A year later, my bereaved mother succumbed to the strain of grief, and she too passed away. That's when I made up my mind that one day, without fail, I would cross the seas to Britain and seek the truth for myself. The truth about my father, Genshin Asogi. And I wouldn't let anyone stand in my way.
Oh, Kazuma-sama.
Nice backstory. But it leaves questions. Questions that will be answered. What we learned today in court turned things completely on their head. It was an impressive piece of lawyering, Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Lord Van Zieks isn't the Reaper, you know. I almost don't want to believe it myself, but it turns out that Inspector Gregson himself, the victim, was. It's clear that the Inspector was behind the Reaper's activity all along. What? You mean you knew? The real question is, who's been giving orders to the Inspector? Yes, Barak Van Zieks is the real Reaper. And I know that 10 years ago, it was him who decided my father must be a mass murderer and sent him to his grave.
No, he was merely seeing that justice was done as the law dictates. He's not to blame.
Ultimately, it's people who condemn people. The law is just a tool that they use to do it. And when a man condemns another, he must take responsibility for his actions. Of course he must. But I know for certain that my father would never have taken another man's life. Kazuma. On the contrary, my father's life was taken by the Reaper. I don't quite believe that. I think I have to probably present a couple of things to him, though. Yeah, I don't know what. This? I'm not gonna read it until... okay. So he just doesn't want to discuss any evidence. There's only one place where defense lawyers and prosecutors should discuss evidence. The courtroom. So it seems you're still confused by the situation. That's what I make of it. I get the feeling my friend's always going to have the edge over me, isn't he? I can at least show you this. Kazuma, this is your armband. Actually, I think it's yours now. Sorry? You're the defense lawyer. You have a talent for it. I've always known that you would. And now you've chosen to take that path in life. As your friend, I couldn't be happier for you. Or more proud. Kazuma. So you keep hold of that. Besides, I'm a prosecutor now. That armband would have no meaning for me. Well, if you're sure. Thank you, my friend. Nice. Glad we did that. Yeah, I don't think anything else. So let's examine some things, maybe? Let's examine this. What the? It's a scale model of the crime scene. Oh, yes, I realize that. Does the prosecution office make a model of the scene for every single case? Apparently so. Sometimes it helps to visualize things better and notice some things you hadn't spotted before. Actually, the miniature notice board is my work. Be honest, you enjoyed making that. And Clint, of course. Do you know who the man in the portrait is? Why would I? What? But you're Lord Van Zeeks' apprentice. Yes, apprentice, not friend. And during the time I was suffering from amnesia, I didn't even notice that picture. Oh, really? I mean, it's not the smallest picture. I wouldn't have the first idea what the man decorates his office with. Well, that was worthless, I guess. I don't know what that is. And I suppose I could check the wine again. Casks floor to ceiling, just like the last time we were here. Wait. Oh, it was... Okay, yeah, it was the same person. For some reason, I thought it was a different person, saying different lines. Hollowed barrels, I suppose. They're arranged according to vintage, flavor, and region. Every week, they're all taken out and put back in order. What? Every week? Lord Van Zeeks can't seem to settle on the perfect way of arranging them, you see. Vintage, flavor, and region don't neatly coincide. That's the trouble. Gosh, being his apprentice must be a real challenge. Actually, no. Oh? He considers the task too important to entrust to anybody else, so he does it entirely on his own. So he's a barrel of laughs here and in court then. Yeah, I believe that the way that they write their jokes in this is they come up with the punchline and then they just like try and create a scene that leads to that line. It feels like. Suppose we'll check this. There's Lord Van Zeeks' incredibly stylish desk. It's not my style, though. No, I notice you've been working at the little table on the floor, nailing down Seiza style. I thought it was some kind of punishment set up by Lord Van Zeeks when I first saw it. I find it the most comfortable way to work. I can't do it. After a couple of minutes of sitting with my legs folded under me, they start to go tingly. Don't exaggerate, Ryunosuke. We both know you can't even manage a minute. Lord Van Zeeks' fine collection of hollowed chalices and bottles, all neatly lined up. Yes, he's extremely particular about all that. He has a strict regime for everything, from the storage of the casks to the bottling of their contents. Gosh, he must be having a really rough time of it being his apprentice. Actually, no. Oh? He's so particular about it all, he refuses to let anybody else touch any of it. So it's been quite easy for me, in fact. Talk about weird. Well, I think that's it for this office now. Maybe talk about something of his later. Click on the bats.
Wow!
You disturbed the bats, did you? Fitting companions of Lord Van Zeek's, wouldn't you say? Actually, I've seen things flying in Lord Strongheart's office too. Doves, I think. Perhaps you have to like birds to attain rank in the judiciary here. Although bats aren't birds, of course. How about a sparrow for you? What's that supposed to mean? Oh, nothing, sorry. Just thinking out loud. I think that does kind of fit him, actually. Alright, onwards to not the prison. Damn it. Why did I click on this? Sorry, Van Zeeks. I actually didn't want to come talk to you. The prison governor's office. Oh boy. We're gonna open up a can of worms here, aren't we? Get comfortable. Oh, shit's about to go down. With my terrible Scottish voice. Oh, back again, are you? Yes, hello. I've heard all about your investigations. I read the report just now. You found him, eh? Vigil? Yes, luckily. Well, anywho, the laddie doesn't work here no more. So your case is not to do with Barclay. I would nae like you to get the wrong idea about that. Of course, yes. Mr. Vigil stopped working here 10 years ago now, so...
Yes, we've seen his dismissal notice, haven't we? He was given the chop.
Aye, Kimmer, you ken very well. So, how about a wee handcuff biscuit?
Oh, they really are like little handcuffs. And as hard as irons, too.
So, what's bring you down here today? Well, there's something else we'd like to ask you about, actually. Is that so? We believe there might have been a document that disappeared from Genshin Asogi's cell. I think it's been called the Asogi Papers or something. Did I not say? Gregson's death is not to do with things that might have happened in Barclay. Leave the past in the past, laddie. Let's not fooder about irrelevant details. His expressions changed completely. We're clearly onto something here. I didn't expect us to just mention it to him, though. That murderer's botched execution, and the whole miserable escape. They were Barclay's darkest hour, aye. A shocking embarrassment. Because the convict had a collaborator on the prison staff, you mean? Aye, for shame. The coroner who confirmed the death of the man after his execution, Courtney Scythe, and my chief warder at the time, Vigil, who was in charge of the whole affair.
But Mr. Vigil says he didn't know anything about it.
The rascal wouldn't I say otherwise, eh? More handcuffs?
Oh, how could I say no? You can never have too much iron in your diet. When Mr. Vigil was handed his dismissal notice as a result of what had happened, he was so despairing he jumped out of your office window, didn't he?
I didn't like to say, but that's just Vigil trying to get out of it. Did you no think he would nae have jumped from the shock of his crimes being exposed, eh? I do. You would nae say otherwise, though. Would you? Of course, I cannae shun all responsibility myself. I should nae have let him deceive me. Actually, there's barely anybody that kens what went on at the time now. With Gregson having been murdered and Dr. Scythe forbidden from having any visitors. No visitors. Someone obviously doesn't want her giving anything away.
Well, we're not going home empty-handed.
And I wouldn't dream of sending you packing without, Kimmer. Here, take a handcuff or two.
Oh, well, it would be rude to say no. Wouldn't want to become anemic.
I suppose if there's anybody who might still ken about what happened back then. It'd be that last from the forensic division, Maria Gori.
Maria Gori?
Aye, Scythe's daughter. She didn't have no more. She's just the one. But the wee bairns followed in her mom's footsteps. You didn't ever see her without a scalpel in her hand.
Ah,
Yeah, her. The girl with the plague doctor mask.
Mama, what is this?
Ah, where did she spring from? And how did she just call the doctor? And did she just call the doctor Mama? Yeah, I don't think she'll be very pleased to see us. Dr. Sai's daughter, Maria Gori. We could do with talking to her. What about Gori, though? So, she's Dr. Sai's daughter, but her surname is Gori? Aye, there's some family history, I'm sure, but I dinna ken the ins and outs of it. She grew up watching her mom working with the bodies of the folk who died in strange circumstances, and decided to do the same with her own life. I cannae understand it myself.
Perhaps she was driven by a deep respect for her mother.
Perhaps. Anywho, she was in charge of Gregson's autopsy, I believe. Right, and the coroner responsible for this incomplete report. Someone told me once that the wee lassie always loved her mom's stories about cutting up bodies. There's even a rumor that she used to listen the funeral march as a lullaby.
Well then, perhaps her mother might have told her about the autopsy from the case 10 years ago.
Aye, I'd say there's a fighting chance at least. After all, that was a life-changing case for all of us. We really need to speak to Miss Gori herself about this, I think. Well, thank you very much. I'm no happy about any part of this. It took years for Londoners to finally forget the whole professor business. Can you no get up on this, laddie? Stop asking pointless questions. I'm sorry, I don't like dredging up these painful memories for everyone. Can you no just stay away, noo? Leave me alone and dinna come back here, eh? Not gonna happen, buddy. How do you come to ken about that, laddie? There's no many folk even here in the prison who've heard of those papers. Ah, well, I can't tell him Mr. Vigil told me.
I'm afraid our sources must remain confidential, sir.
We've been led to believe the papers are actually a last will and testament. Is that right? The professor's, or rather, Genshin Asogi's. Aye, that's right. You're well informed, Jimmy. Oh, is that the end of the silent treatment? But then after the convict's execution, it mysteriously vanished from his cell, didn't it? Havers, no, you're off at half cock there. I think you didn't quite get your facts right. It was there in the cell, exactly where it should have been. Oh, not what we heard elsewhere. Let me just have a wee hook around in here. I'm sure I can find it. Aye, here ye are. See? The last will and testament of Genshin Asogi, written with a calligraphy brush. Of course I cannae read a word of those Japanese squiggles, but I mind it says he leaves all his worldly possessions to his son back in his homeland.
Yes, that's correct. That's the gist of it.
So these are the Asogi papers? Aye, of course they are. Papers written by Asogi. Nae doubt about it. There's no mystery here, laddie. That's your lot. After all the stramash of all that slyster of an execution, I have no idea half of the words he's saying are. We sent the man's possessions back to his clan in Japan, and that was the end of it.
I think we ought to make a record of this, Mr. Naruhodo, just in case.
One thing afore you go on your way, Mr. Naruhodo.
Oh, yes?
Those papers are naught to do with Gregson's death. I'd prefer it if you didn't make no mention of them outside this office, or rather, I would nae just prefer it. Consider it an order from the highest levels of our government. I understand. Definitely checking these. I, Genshin Asogi, hereby request that upon my death, any and all material possessions and wealth belonging to me in London be delivered to my son, Kazuma Asogi, in the Empire of Japan. It is with deep sadness that I accept my fate in this foreign land, in the knowledge that I will never see my homeland or family again, but I regret nothing about my chosen path. I feel like that'll probably have something to do with stuff later. But I want to talk to the bird. I always talk to the bird, niece attorney. I'd never have expected to find a parrot in a prison. It must be the governor's pet.
Given where we are, it's hard not to see the poor creature as a prisoner.
Let me out! Dinna kill me!
Ah!
Has the bird learned to mimic the plaintive cries of the inmates in the cells? Oh, no. He was one of three siblings, you see. And he still calls out the name of his two brothers like that all the time. Right.
Let me out! Dinna kill me!
Aye, I hear ya, laddie. You want your dinner, eh? Dinna do it. These weapons on the wall. An axe, a hunting rifle, and 4 pairs of handcuffs. That's a daunting collection. Ah, there's a story behind every one of those. You mean the rifle was a famous killer's murder weapon, and the axe was wielded by an infamous executioner? And the handcuffs were once used to immobilize a fierce 4-legged beast when it was arrested?
I think you're in the realms of fantasy now, Mr. Naruhodo.
Not those kind of stories, Jimmy. That axe was the one I used to chop down the cherry tree at my house. Mrs. Kaiden was nae best pleased. And the cuffs on the left are the ones I caught my first burglar with back when I was a bobby.
The stories were a little different to those you imagined, I think, weren't they?
Yes, to my relief, and in some small way, my disappointment.
The clock.
This grandfather clock is
fitted with a terrifying blade that keeps dropping down.
It's modeled on the guillotine, a French execution device. You might have heard of it. And yes, before you ask, it can chop.
Heads off, you mean?
Havers no. Carrots and parsnips and so forth.
Oh.
If you place a large carrot at the bottom there in the morn, by evening it'll have been cut clean in two.
Well, the blade must have an almost indescribable edge on it then.
Yeah, very weak, if that's the case. And then we can check the cabinet. We can check the deer head, I guess. That deer's been staring at me for a while now.
It has?
The poor thing can't fit through the small hole in the wall, but it can't get its head back out again now either. It's giving me a woefully imploring look.
It's not real, Mr. Naruhodo. It's stuffed.
What? I mean, yes, of course it is. For a moment, I thought it was another assassin sneaking in via the ventilator.
I don't like to say, but I think perhaps you need to reread The Adventures of Sherlock Sholmes.
That's a very large cabinet full of papers, isn't it? It's labeled Inmate Register, look. And all the files are in alphabetical order. That's 50 years worth of records of Barclay's inmates. Whether or no they left alive after serving their term. All the details about the crimes they committed are recorded in there, like an epitaph, you might say.
A record of crimes and punishments. How dispiriting.
And yet, this man seems to be enjoying tea and biscuits as he talks about it. I mean, it's his job. It's kind of like his life's work.
I suppose these are all former governors of Barclay Prison, are they?
Either that or former inmates who the governor has sent to the gallows.
Oh dear, they all have such severe expressions. I really couldn't deny either possibility.
Especially the one on the extreme right. His expression goes beyond severe into a whole new territory. That one's me.
Ah! I'm terribly sorry, sir.
Is it a prerequisite of the job, perhaps? Having a severe expression, I mean. Of course it's not. Although, it is taken into consideration. A lot. Alright, I think that's it for now. We just need to go talk to Gloria. Gloria, oh Gloria. Where in the world would she be? I don't see her office. Maybe she's here? Nope. Just checking. She's not hiding around a corner trying to stab me, is she? Maybe there's something I need to present to the prison governor? Governor Caden, would you have a look at this? Oh, wouldn't you rather have a wee handcuff biscuit? Oh, no thanks. I'd rather you just cast your eyes over this. Or maybe you prefer real handcuffs, eh? No, neither for me, please. Lovely offers, though. Alright, so that didn't work. I really don't quite know. Maybe this? Nope. None of that. I'm just gonna keep presenting things that I think might be... Well, who about that? A friend of Mikotoba turning up after all these years. And his wee barn even.
My father speaks highly of you, sir.
You can. I can see the resemblance now.
Oh!
Aye, especially around your eyes. You look dead like him.
What an interesting observation.
Not the delighted reaction from Susato-san that he might have been expecting. Nothing with that. Nope, nothing with that. I don't think there's really much else. Other than maybe the Asogi papers themselves. Nope. Maybe this. Nothing with that either. Okie dokie. Is there a hint anywhere? I thought that there was a way to do a hint. Aha, here we are. Are you sure we've asked everything we need to, Mr. Naruhodo? I mean, we've asked everything there, so it's just stuff that we need to present to him. Okay. Here's the Asogi papers, buddy. Kazuma, what do you make of this? Nope. They're really not gonna let me show that to him? Nothing with that. I'm just gonna keep doing this until we find something that, you know... the Reaper. At last I get to take my revenge. Kazuma. Lord Van Zieks isn't responsible for your father's death, and he's not the Reaper. He's the defendant and deserving of a fair trial. You mean like the one my father had? It's a closed trial now, too, and the conditions are exactly as they were 10 years ago. And even if it ruffles some feathers, I have a plan to show that man for what he really is. Kazuma. Just gonna keep going. This came up in the trial, didn't it? As something a little dubious, I mean. The fact that no time of death was recorded on Inspector Gregson's autopsy report. Yes, there were some unexpected turns in the courtroom earlier. The suggestion you came up with certainly took everyone by surprise. The idea that the victim died the previous day at some other location is quite something. Well, considering when the pocket watch had stopped and the scorch marks on the candle, it's certainly a distinct possibility. The evidence and the scene both point to it. To be honest, it bothered me too, so I paid a visit to the autopsy room earlier. The coroner responsible wasn't there, but I got a name. It's Dr. Gory.
If it wouldn't trouble you, Kazuma-sama, we'd very much like to speak with the coroner too.
Of course, the last thing I want is for anything to be brushed under the carpet. Scotland Yard's autopsy laboratory is behind Lowgate Cemetery. By Barclay Prison, you mean? Ah, you know it, do you? The prison where my father was incarcerated, and robbed of his life.
Kazuma-sama.
Well, thank you. We'll pay a visit to the laboratory later today. Good. That was what we needed to ask him. Ryunosuke, I want to thank you. What for? For this. You safeguarded the soul of the Asogi clan. Well, it is a famous sword that's been in your family for generations. My only slight regret is that I never got the chance to draw it before I returned it to you. Karuma is said to have been forged by a master swordsmith during the Sengoku Warring States period. I came from a long lineage of warriors, many of whom were expert swordsmen. Well then, you're a chip off the old block, I'd say. This blade, Karuma, is the symbol of the Asogi clan's honor and might. Apparently, one of my father's apprentices even took the blade's name for a surname. Really? Karuma? It does sound formidable, that's for sure. 16 years ago, when my father was a visiting student here in London, he had this sword forever at his side, which is why it means so much to me that I have it by my side again now too. And that is all thanks to you. It was an honor. Well then. Now, I have preparations to make for tomorrow. Perhaps I said a little too much. Kazuma, you've changed. No, Ryunosuke, I haven't changed at all. It's you who's changed. I can completely understand your resentment of Lord Van Zieks given what happened. But the fact is, those events in this case are, well, unrelated. Is that what you want to say? How can you be so sure? What do you mean? Never mind. That man is the Reaper, and it's for that reason that the inspector was killed. I'm going to prove as much in court tomorrow. By whatever means necessary. I can't let you do that, Kazuma. I know you'll do what you have to as a lawyer, but I'm sure I don't need to tell you that I won't be taking any prisoners in the courtroom. I would expect nothing less. Until tomorrow, then, in the Old Bailey. Adios, amigo! Time to go speak with Dr. Gory. This is going to be hell. Oh my god, she bedazzled the fuck out of it. Oh boy. This place really is creepy, isn't it?
Well, being a dead room, it's probably full of the spirits of the dissected. But actually, there's a rather pleasing scent of roses in the air. Well, being a dead room, the coroner probably needs a bold scent like that to mask the odor of death.
Iris, do you think we could change the subject? Oh no. That's the sound that you hear in a horror movie before you die.
What was that?
She's sharpening her scalpels, maybe? Well, she's there. Ah, Dr. Gory? Yeah, she's sharpening her knives.
What?
That noise before.
I was sharpening my tools. I'd be dead meat if I didn't keep a perfectly keen edge on them.
Right.
When following the collagen fibers in the dermis, an expertly sharpened scalpel cuts like cheese. Would you like a demonstration? Oh, yes, please. I'd love to see. Then, I think you'll do nicely.
Huh? No, I wouldn't do nicely at all. I mean, maybe some other time. Was that a tut? Well, we came here to ask questions, so... Wonder if she knows who we are. That wouldn't be good. We have actually met before. I'm a lawyer, if you remember.
You're not dead yet.
What?
So Mama said I wasn't to cut you open. She's so strict about things like that.
Well, good. Dr. Scythe has some scruples, at least.
Oh dear. It looks like she's not interested in talking to us, for the time being anyway.
For the time being? You mean until we die? I hope that's a way off. Me too. Sorry, but I wasn't planning on dying anytime soon. Surely there's some less drastic way of making her listen. Well, I suppose presenting something. Maybe about her autopsy. Dr. Gory, we actually came here to ask you about this.
He was very good.
Good? Sorry?
His skin didn't snag my blade once, and a very little mess. His joints dislocated easily, and his muscle tissue was a pleasure to work with.
We can skip those details. But there is one thing about the report that's caught my attention. You don't seem to have recorded a time of death. Well, Goth princess? Question mark? Goddamn.
That's not my fault.
Oh, that made me jump.
Then please, tell us what happened.
Did not expect her to have that big of a bow in her hair either. So why doesn't this autopsy report include the victim's time of death then? It's really the most crucial detail.
I was told not to write it.
What? By whom?
Mail Stronhart, the Lord Chief Justice. He came here.
Lord Stronhart came?
He said that from the witness statements about the gunshot and the other evidence, it was obvious. The man clearly died at 5 p.m. on the 1st of November when the gunshot was heard. But that's not the time of death you wrote on the report. You didn't write anything. Was there some reason you didn't include it?
Dr. Gory, if you're hiding something under Lord Stronhart's instructions, then sooner or later you're going to go the same way as your mother. Ooh.
Give it here, then.
What's she scribbling so furiously?
There.
You've written...
What? What's she written? Tell us!
Indeterminate.
But...
What do you mean by that? Why was the time of death indeterminate?
When the specimen was brought in, it was still fresh. So the time of death could easily have coincided with when the gunshot was heard. But there was one small discrepancy.
What discrepancy?
There was some fried fish in the pocket of the specimen's overcoat. And that fish had started to rot.
What?
If the victim liked fried fish, he presumably liked to eat it before it went off.
Well, yes. What are you really trying to say?
It's possible that someone tried to manipulate the apparent time of death.
Manipulate the... Is that even possible to do?
Theoretically, if you were to chill the body in ice, you could delay the onset of putrefaction. And if the overcoat wasn't on the body at the time, then only the fish would have started to rot. With today's science, it's not yet possible to determine if the body was chilled or not. But today's science is advanced enough to let you freeze a but, oh god. I keep... Ugh. It's the fact that she has the mask on that I can't tell. But today's science is advanced enough to let you freeze a corpse, it seems. But surely, to chill a corpse like that would require an enormous electrical refrigerator. And I don't imagine many households in London are equipped with such a device. No, definitely not. But maybe in a factory? Or some other special places. I don't recall seeing any factories or such like on Fresno Street, though. I wonder, if the inspector's body had been chilled somehow, what might the actual time of death have been? I couldn't say for sure. But at the most, it might have been a day earlier.
No!
In other words, it would corroborate your previous deduction, Mr. Naruhodo. That Inspector Gregson was killed a day before his body was discovered, at a different location.
Did you inform Lord Strongheart of this possibility?
He simply said that there were no electrical refrigerators of that size in the vicinity.
So Strongheart's trying to cover up what happened in this case.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes, one other thing. It's something the governor of the Barclay prison told us. He said that your mother, Dr. Scythe, was responsible for confirming the death of the professor after his execution.
The professor.
Apparently, you always enjoyed listening to your mother's stories about her work, so we were wondering if you might know something about what happened 10 years ago.
That's not all Mama did.
Sorry?
My Mama carried out the autopsy of Clint Van Zeeks as well.
What? Really? The brother of Lord Van Zeeks, the professor's final victim.
The idea of carrying out an autopsy on a member of the aristocracy was completely unthinkable back then. But the detective in charge of the investigation insisted, and it was miraculously authorized.
That was Gregson.
That detective being Inspector Gregson, of course.
Quite an accomplishment for one man.
That autopsy provided the vital clue needed to arrest the killer. And Mama was there for that historic event.
What is that? What does all this mean?
You know, that amazing autopsy happened right here in this very room. The professor and Clint Van Zeeks. They both spent their final moments before their burial on that dissection table there. So this lab, Mama's lab, was instrumental in some of the country's most important events.
So she really is proud of her mother. I wonder if you'd tell us more about exactly what happened back then, Dr. Gorey. I suppose so.
The professor's execution was Mama's first big case. She had to be in attendance at Barclay Prison's execution chamber and sign the certificate to confirm the convict's death. Mama is the best coroner in the world, you know. I was So proud of her.
But the execution didn't actually take place.
No, and worse still, Mama actually helped with the jailbreak. I didn't want to know. Oh dear, you found out recently, you mean? I believed in her, in Mama, but now I wonder if I'm starting down the same path as her.
You mean because you omitted the time of death on this autopsy report? But that's because Lord Stronhart forbade you from including it.
Just like Mama, I'm sure she was coerced by somebody too.
Yes, that's my feeling as well.
There's no doubt that there were powerful forces at play 10 years ago. The execution couldn't have been staged without a lot of people at the prison knowing about it. Obviously, the prison governor must have been in on it as well. The big man with the little handcuffs? According to what he told us, he was tricked by the chief warder. He says he knew nothing about it. Of course he said that. I'd say the same thing.
Just who was behind that jailbreak all those years ago? You mentioned something in the the autopsy of Clint Van Zeeks.
It was at a time when carrying out autopsies of murder victims was very unusual. It's still not a practice that's observed in our country, even now. It turned out that he was the professor's final victim, and when the autopsy was performed, Mama was present, although only as the secondary assistant. The person leading the procedure was called, Dr. John H. Wilson. That's right, my daddy! And there was one other person present, the primary assistant. He was a visiting student from the Far East.
Wait, a visiting student?
It must have been my father, Eugene Mikotoba.
I had no idea Professor Mikotoba had been involved in something so important.
But the outcome of that historic autopsy was the discovery of a vital piece of evidence that led to the capture of the professor.
So that's how they came to identify Genshin Asogi as the infamous mass murderer. Do you happen to know anything about that piece of evidence? Can you tell us any more?
Would you like to see the records for yourself?
What? Would that be alright?
What's the point of keeping records if people can't look at them? They're filed under V at the back of those cupboards, with the other records from the last decade.
Thank you. Well then, let's see. Van Zeeks. That's strange.
What, Mr. Naruhodo?
They aren't here. There's nothing under Van Zeeks.
There must be.
Perhaps somebody took them away?
No one's allowed to take documents related to the professor case out of this room. But you're right, they're gone.
Well, when was the last time somebody looked at them? Do you remember?
It was... Oh yes, I remember now. It was 2 years ago. A consulting detective came one day saying that he'd like to see the records.
No, you don't mean...
Herlock Sholmes was his name.
Damn! Deep down I knew that was coming.
Do you think he stole the records? Oh no, surely not. Iris, that can't be right, can it?
Iris? Ooh, buddy.
Bruno? I hope you don't mind, but...
What is it, Iris?
I've just remembered something very important I have to do. I'm going to have to leave you now. Oh, this is very sudden, Iris. Well, we'll come with you then. Oh, no, there's no need. You and Runo can take your time here. Bye for now then. Good luck.
Uh-oh.
Wait a minute, little girl. Me? I remember now. You've been here before, haven't you?
Oh, have you, Iris?
Yes, 2 years ago, when that detective came. You were with him, weren't you? You were a living specimen then, too.
That's the way it usually works, yes.
Was I? I really don't remember. Anyway, sorry, but I must dash.
Wait, Iris.
I'll brew up a pot for you when you get home.
What's the matter with her? She's behaving really strangely all of a sudden. Well, in that case, we won't keep you any longer either.
It's been quite a while since I had any visitors. This was really fun. But next time you come, I'd prefer it if you were ready for dissection.
I can't make any promises, sorry. It's a bit strange that the records of Clint Van Zeeks' autopsy have disappeared, but I think we've asked all we came to ask now. Those were a couple of bombshells. I was waiting for it. A couple of bombshells. So everyone is really wrapped in with this, including Herlock. And especially Iris, too. And Iris is getting close. She's getting real close to finding out about Dr. John H. Wilson. And I'm pretty sure... Oh, I'm pretty sure that we're gonna have to deal with that sooner rather than later. But for right now, that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you guys very much for watching. And in the next episode, I feel like we are pretty close. We are pretty close to finding out some big new evidence and potentially ending this portion of the investigation. So yeah, in the next episode, hopefully we can do just that. And thank you guys very much for watching. I will see you guys then.